The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the Indomitable. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood with his hands behind his back, watching the quiet darkness of space. He had been doing this job for 20 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and criminals, but he had never faced anything like what was coming today. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Park So-young from her station, "we're getting a signal from the edge of our space. It's as big." Tae-ho turned around. So-young was the best communication officer he had ever worked with. When she said something was big, it was worth paying attention to. "Show me," he said. The main screen lit up. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were huge, dark things that looked like giant insects made of metal. They moved in perfect formation, blocking out the stars behind them. "Sir," whispered Captain Lee Dong-wook, who commanded the ship's weapons. "I've never seen anything like this." None of them had. Humans had been traveling between the stars for almost 100 years now. They had built colonies on 12 different worlds. They had met a few other species, but always small groups. Traders, explorers, scientists. Never anything like this massive fleet. Ambassador Yoon Mi-ran stepped onto the bridge. She was Earth's top diplomat, sent to handle first contact with new species. But looking at the screen, her face was pale. "They're sending a message," So-young reported. "It's in perfect human language. They already know how to speak to us." "Play it," Tae-ho ordered. A voice filled the bridge. It was cold and mechanical, but somehow alive. It spoke with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. "Primitive species of this sector. You call yourselves humans. We are the Velkari Empire. We have ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 of your years. We have conquered 500 species. We have destroyed 200 more who refused to obey us." The Admiral felt his jaw tighten. Beside him, Dong-wook's hand moved closer to the weapon controls. The voice continued. "You will now become part of our empire. You will give us 60% of all the things you make. You will give us 40% of your people to work for us. You will tear down your military. You will obey our laws. You have 24 of your hours to accept these terms." There was a pause. Then the voice became even colder. "If you refuse, we will destroy one of your worlds as an example. Then we will ask again. Every species accepts our second offer. Do not force us to make you watch your people die." The message ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment. "How many ships?" Tae-ho asked quietly. "Sensors show at least 800, sir," So-young replied. "Maybe more behind them. Each one is 3 times bigger than our largest battleship." Ambassador Yoon stepped forward. "Admiral, I need to contact Earth immediately. The Council needs to know about this. We need to discuss our options." Tae-ho nodded, but he was already thinking. Options? What options did they have? The human fleet had maybe 50 battleships total. Good ships with brave crews, but nothing compared to this massive force. "Sir," Dong-wook said quietly, "should I signal the fleet to prepare for battle?" The Admiral looked at the screen again. The alien ships just sat there, dark and threatening, waiting for an answer they were sure would come. "Do it," he said. "All ships to battle stations. But hold position." For the next hour, reports came in from across human space. The alien fleet had been detected by every colony, every outpost, every ship. The message was being broadcast everywhere. Fear was spreading through human space like wildfire. Finally, So-young looked up from her communication station. "Admiral, I have the Earth Council on secure channel." The voices of the 12 council members filled the bridge. They were scared. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few even suggested accepting the alien terms. "We could save lives," Council Member Chen argued. "If we fight, millions might die." "If we surrender," replied Council Member Torres, "we become slaves forever. Our children, their children, all of them." The argument went on for 20 minutes. Finally, Council President Williams asked the question that mattered. "Admiral Kim, what is your military assessment?" Tae-ho thought carefully before answering. "Mr. President, they have overwhelming force. In a straight fight, we would lose badly, but what, Admiral? But they expect us to be afraid. They've done this hundreds of times before. They expect us to either surrender immediately or fight desperately and lose quickly. They don't know humans very well." There was silence from Earth. Then President Williams spoke again. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Tae-ho looked around the bridge. At So-young, who had joined the fleet to explore the stars. At Dong-wook, who had lost his brother in the Mars colonial wars but still believed in protecting human freedom. at Ambassador Yoon, who had spent her life trying to make peace with other species. "I recommend we give them our answer," he said. 20 minutes later, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood alone on the bridge. His crew was at their stations ready for whatever came next. The alien fleet waited in the darkness. "Lieutenant Park," he said, "open a channel to the alien fleet. Full broadcast all frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Tae-ho stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. Every human ship in space could hear him. Every colony world was listening. Back on Earth, billions of people waited for their answer to the alien demands. "This is Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Terran Defense Fleet," he began. "You have made demands of humanity. We reject them entirely. This is your only warning. Leave our space immediately." He paused, looking directly at the screen where the alien ships waited. "Humanity does not pardon those who threaten our freedom." The message ended. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the crew waited. Across human space, 50 battleships held position. On 12 colony worlds, people looked up at the stars and wondered what would happen next. In the alien fleet, Overlord Thexmorn listened to the human response. He had heard such brave words before. Species always tried to sound strong when they first met the Velkari Empire. It never lasted long. He gave his order with the casual tone of someone who had done this many times before. "Choose one of their worlds. Destroy it completely. Make sure the others can watch." The Velkari had no idea what they had just started. Colony world Harmony had always been the most peaceful place in human space. The planet was covered in green fields and small towns. Farmers grew food that fed 3 other worlds. Families came here to escape the busy life of the big cities. Children played in meadows under 2 gentle suns. Captain An Sung-min commanded the small defense fleet that protected Harmony. 6 patrol ships and 2 light cruisers, good enough to stop pirates or smugglers. Not nearly enough for what was coming. "Sir," called his communication officer, "we're picking up a massive fleet heading our way. Looks like, oh God, it's them, the aliens." An had listened to Admiral Kim's broadcast 3 hours ago. Every human in space had heard it. The brave words about not pardoning those who threatened humanity. But looking at the sensor readings now, those words felt very far away. "How many ships?" he asked. 47, sir. All of them bigger than anything we've ever seen." On the planet below, Colonel Bei Jinwoo was trying to organize an evacuation, but Harmony had 2.3 million people spread across 4 continents. They had maybe 6 hours before the alien fleet arrived. The math was simple and terrible. They couldn't save everyone. "Get the children out first," he ordered his staff. Then the elderly. "Everyone else who can fight stays." Engineer Oh Hee-jin was working frantically at the spaceport. The big cargo ships that normally carried grain to other worlds were being loaded with families instead. Parents kissed their children goodbye and sent them to safety while they stayed behind to help others escape. "How many can we get off-world?" Bei asked her. Hee-jin wiped sweat from her forehead. "Maybe 400,000. If we're lucky." That left almost 2 million people with nowhere to go. In space, Captain An watched the alien fleet get closer. His 8 ships looked like toys compared to the massive dark vessels approaching Harmony. "Captain," his weapons officer reported, "we're getting a message from the alien fleet." The voice was the same cold mechanical tone they had heard before. "Human defenders of this world, we are here to demonstrate the cost of refusing the Velkari Empire. You may surrender your ships and watch from safety, or you may die with your planet. Choose now." An looked around his small bridge. His crew was young. Most of them had joined the fleet to protect cargo ships and help lost traders. They had never expected to fight a war. "Sir?" asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kim Yo-han. "Orders?" An thought about the evacuation ships still lifting off from the planet below. Every minute his fleet could buy them was another few thousand lives saved. "All ships," he broadcast to his small fleet. "Attack formation. We're going to buy our people time to escape." Lieutenant Kim stared at him. "Sir, we can't win this fight." "No," An agreed. "We can't, but we can make it expensive for them." The 8 human ships moved forward to meet 47 alien vessels. It should have been over in minutes. But Captain An had been fighting pirates for 10 years. He knew how to use speed and surprise against bigger enemies. His ships split up, attacking from different directions. They were fast and hard to hit. The alien ships were powerful but slow. For 20 minutes, the small human fleet danced between the massive alien vessels, hitting and running, never staying in one place long enough to get caught. Direct hit on the alien flagship. called the weapons officer. "We actually hurt them." But there were just too many enemies. One by one, On's ships were destroyed. The patrol ship Liberty exploded trying to ram an alien cruiser. The Defender died covering an evacuation transport. The Hope went down fighting 3 alien ships at once. Finally, only On's ship was left. Half his crew was dead. The engines were failing. The weapons were almost out of power. "Captain," Kim Johan said quietly, "we've done everything we can. The evacuation ships are clear of the system." On nodded. They had saved 400,000 lives. It would have to be enough. "Set course for the alien flagship," he ordered. "Full speed, sir." "We're going to ram them. Maybe we can take a few more of them with us." The battered human ship charged straight at the largest alien vessel. The aliens tried to shoot it down, but On was an expert pilot. He dodged their fire, flying his dying ship like a fighter instead of a cruiser. The impact was tremendous. The human ship disappeared in a ball of fire, but it left a huge hole in the alien flagship. Emergency alarms screamed across the Valkyrie fleet as their command ship vented atmosphere and debris. On the planet below, Colonel Bay watched the sky burn. The alien fleet was turning its attention to Harmony now. Their massive weapons began to charge up for bombardment. "All units," he broadcast to his ground forces, "this is it. Make them remember that humans were here." The aliens didn't bother with a ground invasion. They simply began destroying everything from orbit. Huge beams of energy swept across the continents, turning cities into glass and fields into ash. But even as their world died around them, the humans didn't give up. Engineer Oh-hee Jin had stayed behind to help the evacuation. Now she used her knowledge of the planet's systems to cause problems for the aliens. She overloaded power plants, creating massive explosions that damaged the alien ships above. She triggered volcanic eruptions by destabilizing geological sensors. Even dying, Harmony fought back. Colonel Bay led his Marines in a final desperate mission. They couldn't hurt the ships in space, but they could send a message. Using every camera and communication system left on the planet, they broadcast their last stand across human space. The galaxy would see what happened when someone crossed humanity. The battle for Harmony lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the planet was a burning wasteland. No human life remained on the surface. 1.9 million people had died fighting for their home. But their message reached every human world. Every colony saw the footage of Captain On's final charge. Every settlement heard Colonel Bay's last broadcast. "Tell them we were here. Tell them we fought. Tell them we didn't surrender." On Earth, the Planetary Council met in emergency session. Some members were crying. Others were angry. All of them were changed by what they had seen. "They murdered 1.9 million innocent people," said Council Member Torres. Just to make a point, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood before the council. His face was like stone. "They were warned," he said quietly. "We told them to leave. They chose to do this instead. What do we do now?" asked President Williams. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was colder than space itself. "Now we show them why humanity does not pardon." Across human space, something was changing. The shock of Harmony's destruction was wearing off, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. In secret military bases, classified projects suddenly received unlimited funding. On colony worlds, civilian factories began retooling for war production. In the fleet, officers who had never fought anything worse than pirates began studying the recordings of the Battle of Harmony, learning how the aliens fought. The Valkyrie had expected their demonstration to break human resistance. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. Humanity had been holding back, trying to be peaceful explorers and builders. That time was over. The aliens would learn that destroying Harmony hadn't made humanity weaker. It had removed the one thing that had been keeping them safe: human mercy. The Valkyrie Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear for 3,000 years. They had never faced an enemy like humanity. Where other species fought defensively, trying to protect their homes, humans launched attacks that seemed impossible. Fleet Admiral Quan Somin stood on the bridge of the Unstoppable, watching the fortress world of Keth Prime grow larger on the main screen. This was the heart of Valkyrie military power, a planet covered in weapons and protected by the largest fleet in their empire. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "we're detecting over 400 Valkyrie warships in defensive positions around the planet." Quan smiled coldly. "They still don't understand. Show them how humans really fight." The human fleet that approached Keth Prime looked small compared to the massive Velkari defense force. Only 60 ships against 400. But these weren't the same ships the galaxy had seen before. These were weapons that had been built in secret, using technology that pushed the limits of what was possible. Commander Shin Hyo-rin had spent the last week infiltrating Keth Prime's defenses. Her stealth ships were invisible to every sensor the Velkari had. More importantly, they carried nanite swarms that had been quietly infecting every computer system on the planet. Nanites are in position, she reported to Admiral Kwan. Their defense grid is completely compromised. When you give the signal, their own weapons will target their own ships. On the planet's surface, Special Agent Nam Woo-jin was conducting a different kind of warfare. He had been broadcasting footage of Harmony's destruction across Velkari communication networks. But he added something else. Real-time video of what was happening to Velkari forces that tried to fight humanity. Let them see what happened to their patrol fleets, he told his team. Let them watch their fortress worlds fall. Fear is a weapon, and we're going to use it. The Velkari defenders around Keth Prime were confident. They had overwhelming numbers. They had the most powerful weapons in their empire. They had never lost a major battle in their long history. They were about to learn that history was ending. Admiral Kwan gave the order to attack at exactly noon, local time. She wanted the Velkari to remember when their world ended. The first sign that something was wrong came when the planet's own defense guns opened fire on the Velkari fleet. Massive energy weapons that were supposed to protect Keth Prime instead began destroying the ships they were meant to defend. "What's happening?" screamed the Velkari fleet commander. "Why are our own weapons attacking us?" His communications officer was frantically trying to regain control of the defense grid. "Sir, something is wrong with our computers. They're not responding to our commands. It's like they've been reprogrammed." They had been. Commander Shin's nanites had spent days learning every detail of Velkari computer systems. Now they turned the aliens' greatest strength against them. But the real terror began when the human fleet started attacking. The Velkari had never seen weapons like these. Human ships fired beams that made enemy vessels simply disappear. Not destroyed, but erased from existence at the quantum level. Other weapons released swarms of tiny machines that ate through Velkari ship hulls like acid. The most frightening weapon was something the humans called fear bombs. These devices released chemicals into the air that made Velkari soldiers experience pure, overwhelming terror. Warriors who had fought for decades suddenly couldn't hold their weapons. Ship crews abandoned their posts and ran in panic. "This isn't how warfare is supposed to work," one Velkari captain broadcast before his ship was consumed by nanites. "You're supposed to fight with honor." Captain Lee Dong-wook heard the transmission from his command ship. He remembered the children of Harmony who had died just to prove a point. His response was broadcast across the entire battle. "Honor? You murdered 1.9 million innocent people to scare us into surrendering. You don't get to talk about honor anymore." The battle for Keth Prime became a nightmare for the Velkari. Their own defenses turned against them. Their ships stopped working for no reason they could understand. Their weapons jammed, their life support systems failed, their armor fell apart. But even worse was watching it happen. Special Agent Nam had made sure that every moment of their defeat was being broadcast across the galaxy. Other species under Velkari rule could see their masters being destroyed by humans who had been dismissed as primitives. "Look at your mighty empire," Nam's voice carried over every communication channel. "Look how easily it falls when someone refuses to be afraid." On worlds throughout the galaxy, other species began to rebel. The Althari attacked Velkari governors who had ruled them for centuries. The Zephyrians released biological weapons they had been developing in secret. The Granite people emerged from asteroid hiding places with fleets the Velkari never knew existed. The empire that had seemed invincible for 3,000 years was cracking apart in a single day. Overlord Thexmorn watched the destruction of Keth Prime from his command ship at the edge of the system. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "How is this possible?" he asked his advisors. They were nothing, a young species with a few dozen ships. His intelligence chief was studying the recordings of the battle with growing horror. "Sir, I don't think they were ever weak. I think they were hiding their true capabilities all along. But why? Why would they pretend to be less than they were?" "Because," said a new voice, "we hoped we would never need to show you what we really are." Dr. Park So-young appeared on their main screen. The human scientist who had first detected the Velkari fleet was now broadcasting from Earth itself. "You had your chance," she continued. "We gave you one warning. We told you to leave our space peacefully. Instead, you chose to murder innocent people just to prove your strength." Thexmorn leaned forward. "Human, I offer you terms. Withdraw your fleets and we will negotiate a treaty. There has been enough death on both sides." Dr. Park's expression didn't change. "There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. You taught us something important when you destroyed Harmony. Some enemies don't deserve to exist." The transmission ended. Around Keth Prime, the last Velkari ships were being systematically destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand. The fortress planet itself was being taken apart piece by piece, its population evacuated to camps where they would wait to learn their fate. Fleet Admiral Quan contacted all human forces across the galaxy. Phase 3 begins now. We move on their homeworld, end this war. But for many species watching the broadcast, the war was already over. The Velkari Empire had been revealed as weak and vulnerable. Their greatest fortress had fallen in a single day to a species they had tried to destroy. Across the galaxy, the phrase was being repeated in 100 different languages. Humanity does not pardon. The Velkari were about to learn exactly what that meant. The Velkari homeworld had never been attacked. For 3,000 years, it had been the center of an empire that stretched across half the galaxy. Its cities were built like monuments to Velkari power. Its orbital defenses were the strongest in known space. None of that mattered now. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the planet that had ordered Harmony's destruction. His fleet wasn't the largest humanity had ever assembled. It was the most precise. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Park So-young, "we're detecting massive defense networks around the planet. Thousands of weapon platforms, hundreds of patrol ships." "Good," Tae-ho said quietly. "I want them to see this coming. I want them to understand exactly what's about to happen." The human fleet that approached the Velkari homeworld was different from anything the galaxy had seen. These weren't ships built for exploration or trade. They were instruments of judgment, created by a species that had decided some enemies didn't deserve mercy. Overlord, Thexmorn waited in his palace, surrounded by guards and advisors. Reports were coming in from across his crumbling empire. World after world was falling to human forces or rebelling with alien allies. The vast Velkari Empire was collapsing in days instead of years. "How many ships do the humans have approaching our world?" he asked his military commander. "Only 37, my lord, but what? But our sensors can't identify what they're carrying. The weapon signatures don't match anything in our databases." Thexmorn almost laughed. 37 ships against the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. Even humans couldn't be that confident. He was wrong. The human attack began not with weapons but with words. Admiral Tae-ho's voice was broadcast across every communication channel on the planet. "People of the Velkari homeworld. This is Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your empire ordered the destruction of our world Harmony. 1.9 million innocent people died just to prove your strength. We gave you one warning. You chose to ignore it." The transmission paused. Every Velkari on the planet was listening now. Today you learn what happens when humanity decides to stop being patient. The first human ship moved toward the planet's orbital defense grid. It should have been destroyed instantly by thousands of weapon platforms. Instead, the platforms simply stopped working. Their computers had been infected weeks ago by nanites so small they passed through every filter. Commander Shin Hyo-rin watched from her stealth ship as the planet's defenses turned against each other. "Nanite infection complete," she reported. "Their defense grid is now under our control." But the real shock came when the human ships began using their actual weapons. Dr. Lim Jae-sung's quantum disruption beams didn't just destroy Velkari ships, they made them stop existing. Matter that had been organized into warships suddenly forgot how to hold together. Captain Lee, Dongwook commanded a vessel carrying bioadaptive viruses that could rewrite alien DNA. But these weapons weren't designed to kill. They were designed to change Velkari soldiers into something else, something that couldn't feel the aggression that had driven their empire. "Sir," his science officer reported, "the virus is working perfectly. Velkari ground forces are laying down their weapons. They seem to have lost all desire to fight." Fleet Admiral Quan, So-Min's ship carried the most terrifying weapon of all, a device that could make an entire planet's population experience the last moments of Harmony's children. Every Valkyrie would feel exactly what it was like to watch their world burn. "Activate empathy bombs," she ordered. Across the Valkyrie homeworld, millions of aliens suddenly experienced 1.9 million deaths. They felt the terror of families torn apart, the despair of parents watching their children die, the agony of a peaceful world being destroyed just to make a point. For the first time in their species' history, the Valkyrie understood what their victims had felt. Overlord Thexmorn collapsed in his palace as the full weight of Harmony's destruction hit his mind. Around him, his guards were weeping for people they had never met, on a world they had never seen. "Stop," he whispered. "Please make it stop." Admiral Tejo's voice filled the palace. "This is what you did to us. This is what 1.9 million people experienced because you wanted to prove how strong you were." The Valkyrie leader struggled to his feet. He had commanded the deaths of billions across his long reign. Now he felt every single one. "I surrender," he broadcast across all channels. "The Valkyrie Empire surrenders completely, please. No more." But Tejo's response was final. "There will be no surrender. You were warned. The human fleet didn't destroy the Valkyrie homeworld. That would have been too simple. Instead, they systematically dismantled everything that had made the Valkyrie Empire powerful. Their weapons were quantum disrupted into nothing. Their ships were consumed by nanites. Their computer networks were reprogrammed to serve the species they had once oppressed. Most importantly, every Valkyrie was changed by the bioadaptive viruses. They would never again be able to feel the aggressive impulses that had driven their empire. They would spend the rest of their lives helping rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. Ambassador Yun Mi-Ran addressed the liberated species of the former Valkyrie Empire from the planet's capital. "The war is over. The Valkyrie Empire no longer exists. But remember this day. Remember what happens when someone mistakes humanity's desire for peace as weakness." She looked directly into the camera that was broadcasting. "Across the galaxy, humanity extends friendship to those who respect our boundaries and peace to those who honor our warnings. But we do not pardon those who threaten what we protect. Today the galaxy learned that lesson. Don't make us teach it again." Years later, Dr. Park So-young studied reports from across known space. The phrase "humanity does not pardon" had become both warning and promise among the stars. Aggressive species had learned to listen when humans issued ultimatums. Peaceful civilizations had found steadfast allies in Earth's children. The memorial on the rebuilt Harmony bore a simple inscription: 2.3 million souls lost to teach the galaxy a single lesson. Some lines should never be crossed. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, now elderly, stood before that memorial and spoke to new officers joining the Terran Defense Fleet. "We are explorers, scientists, builders, and dreamers. We prefer peace to war, cooperation to conquest. But never forget, when someone threatens what we protect, we become something else entirely." He looked at the young faces before him, humans who had grown up in a galaxy where their species was respected and feared in equal measure. "We become judgment itself." The Valkyrie homeworld was now called Remembrance. Its population spent their days growing food for worlds their empire had once starved, building schools on planets they had once bombed, healing species they had once tortured. They would do this for the rest of their lives, and their children would continue the work, not because they were slaves, but because the bioadaptive viruses had given them something their species had never possessed: the ability to feel genuine remorse. Across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. Some civilizations that had been planning wars of conquest quietly abandoned those plans. Others that had been hiding in fear began to explore the stars again, knowing that humanity would protect the innocent. The universe was a different place now. Not because humanity had proven they could destroy their enemies, but because they had proven they would choose justice over mercy when the choice had to be made. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their explorations, carrying a message that was now understood by every species they encountered. Humanity does not pardon those who cross the line from war to murder. But for everyone else, the stars were wide and full of friends. The destruction of Harmony changed everything. Within hours of the planet's death, something began happening across human space that the Valkyrie had never seen before. Instead of surrendering in fear, humanity transformed into something completely different. General Choi Min-ho had been waiting for this day for 20 years. As director of Terran Special Operations, he knew secrets that most humans didn't even suspect existed. Now, standing in a hidden command center deep beneath the surface of Mars, he gave the order that would reveal humanity's true nature. "Activate Protocol 7, he said quietly. Across 12 star systems, mining stations suddenly stopped digging for ore. Research facilities abandoned their peaceful experiments. Civilian shipyards revealed hidden construction bays that had been building in secret for decades. What the galaxy saw as humanity's small, peaceful fleet was about to become something very different. On the mining world of Kepler Station, Supervisor Nam Woo-jin received the coded message. He had been pretending to dig for rare metals for 15 years. In reality, he had been building warships in underground factories. The mining equipment his workers had been making was actually advanced weapon systems. "Time to stop pretending," he told his crew. They pressed a button that had been waiting for this moment. The entire surface of the planet split open like a flower, revealing massive shipyards filled with vessels that shouldn't exist. Dr. Lim Jae-sung had spent his career working on theoretical physics at a quiet research station near Jupiter. His colleagues thought he was studying how to make faster engines for cargo ships. They were wrong. He had been developing weapons that could break the laws of reality itself. "Begin quantum disruption field tests," he ordered his team. They had been waiting to use their discoveries for 2 decades. Now they would find out if their impossible theories actually worked. Major Han Ye-jin commanded a unit that officially didn't exist. The ghost reconnaissance teams were listed in no military records. They flew ships that sensors couldn't detect. They had been mapping alien space for years, just waiting for orders to strike. "All ghost teams," she broadcast on channels the aliens couldn't intercept, "execute Operation Shadowfall. It's time to show them how humans really fight." The Velkari Empire had no idea what was coming. They had seen humanity's official fleet, 50 battleships and maybe 200 smaller vessels. They thought they knew exactly what humans could do. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first sign of change came at the edge of Velkari space. Their patrol ships began disappearing. Not destroyed in battle, simply vanishing without any trace. Scout vessels that had been watching human colonies went silent. Communication relays stopped working. Overlord Thexmorn was annoyed but not worried. "Probably technical failures," he told his commanders. "These primitive species always have problems with their equipment." He was wrong. Major Han's ghost teams were moving through Velkari space like invisible death. Their ships used technology that bent light around them. Their weapons could phase shift matter at the quantum level. They weren't just attacking, they were studying, learning every detail of how the Velkari fought. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yoon Mi-ran was making contact with other species in the galaxy. Her message was simple. The Velkari Empire is not as strong as you think. Humanity is about to prove it. Join us. She was amazed by the response. Dozens of species had been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge Velkari rule. The Althari had been secretly building weapons for centuries. The Zephyrians had developed bio-warfare that could target Velkari genetics specifically. The rock-like granite people had ships hidden in asteroid fields throughout the galaxy. "We've been waiting for 3,000 years, an Althari commander told her, "waiting for someone brave enough to fight back. Your species may be young, but you have something we lost long ago, the courage to say no." Back in human space, the transformation was becoming visible. The mining station near Tau Ceti opened up to reveal a shipyard 3 times larger than anything Earth had ever built. The agricultural world of New Geneva lifted away its fake farms to show weapons testing facilities. The scientific research station at Wolf 359 deployed a fleet of ships that moved faster than anything the Velkari had ever seen. Fleet Admiral Kwan So-min had been commanding what everyone thought was a small patrol fleet protecting the outer colonies. Now her true command was revealed. Over 300 warships that had been hidden in deep space waiting for this moment. "All fleet commanders," she broadcast. "This is Admiral Kwan. Begin Phase 2 operations. Show them what human engineering can really do." The ships that emerged from hiding didn't look like normal human vessels. They were sleek, dark, and covered in technology that seemed to bend space around them. These weren't the ships humanity used for peaceful exploration. These were weapons built for a war everyone hoped would never come. Dr. Lim Jae-sung's quantum weapons were loaded onto the new fleet. Captain Lee Dong-wook, now commanding a battle group instead of a single ship, tested the systems that could make enemy ships simply stop existing. Quantum disruption field stable. His weapons officer reported. Target lock acquired on Velkari patrol group. Fire, Dong-wook ordered. The Velkari ships simply stopped, not destroyed, not damaged. They ceased to exist at the molecular level, as if they had never been built at all. Commander Shin Hyo-rin led the first major strike into Velkari territory. Her stealth destroyer Retribution was invisible to every sensor the aliens had. She carried nanite swarms that could reprogram enemy computer systems and bioadaptive viruses that rewrote alien DNA. Beginning infiltration of Keth Prime Defense Network, she reported to Admiral Kwan. Nanites deployed. Their own weapons will turn against them in 6 hours. The Velkari finally began to understand that something was very wrong. Their patrol ships weren't just disappearing. They were being hunted by something they couldn't detect. Their fortress worlds were reporting system failures that couldn't be explained. Their own weapons were malfunctioning in impossible ways. What are these humans? Demanded Overlord Thexmorn. Our intelligence said they were a primitive species with limited military capability. His intelligence officers had no answers. The humans they were fighting now bore no resemblance to the peaceful explorers who had first entered this sector of space. These were not the same species that had built farming colonies and research stations. Or maybe they were, and the Velkari had simply never understood what humans were capable of when pushed beyond their limits. Captain Lee Dong-wook stood on the bridge of his new command ship, watching Velkari positions crumble before weapons that seemed like magic. But he remembered the children of Harmony, the families who had died just to prove a point. This is just the beginning, he said to his crew. They were warned. They chose to ignore that warning. Now they learn what it means when humanity decides to stop being patient. The message went out across both human and Velkari space, carried by ghost team transmissions that could pierce any shield or jamming system. You were warned. You chose to ignore that warning. Now you will learn why humanity does not pardon. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Velkari Empire was afraid.